This episode is sponsored by Code Crafters. As an engineer myself, I know that the best way to learn how to code is to build something new. But sometimes it's hard to come up with project ideas as well as find a community of folks on the same learning path. That's where Code Crafters comes in. With Code Crafters, you can build something that actually stimulates your mind while strengthening your engineering fundamentals. And you can do so by using your favorite IDE or tools to code and build your own Git, Redis, or HTTP server in the language of your choice. Languages like Rust, C++, or Go. Code Crafters is designed to optimize your learning experience as it's designed for productivity. Sign up today and become a better, more confident programmer. Visit codestory.co/codecrafters. That's CODECRAFTERS to get started and get 40% off your upgrade. Okay guys, I got a serious update for you. You heard me talk about SEMA and the product roadmap radar. I just caught up with Matt, who's the founder there, and he gave me the latest on what they are building. And my mind is blown. The team at SEMA are taking things to the next level. Built around the core of the product roadmap radar, i.e. code and Jira analysis, they are building agent orchestration across the product lifecycle. Picture this. You hook up this system same as before, i.e. integrate your repository and your backlog, Jira today. From that point, SEMA's agent analyzes the codebase and makes suggestions as to what needs to be done next and what could improve, optimize the product. Then, if those tasks are routine, the agent assigns the task to a coding agent, think something like Devin, to complete the minutia, while assigning the human-in-the-loop task to engineers themselves. What you end up with is engineers focusing on building core competency features, while AI handles all the rest. If you're not salivating right now, I don't think you fully understand what this means. But here's what I would suggest. Right now, their product is in a closed beta, and SEMA is looking for folks to sign up for their Product Intelligence Advisory Board. This gives you the opportunity to use the product, give feedback, help shape the future of what's built. Oh, and not to mention additional free usage of the product, potentially through the end of 2026. So, if that fits your workflow and toolset, you need to reach out today. Go to codestory.co/nextlevel, NEXTLEVEL, and reach out to Matt at SEMA to learn more and join the Product Intelligence Advisory Board. Again, that's codestory.co/nextlevel. This episode is sponsored by Postman. Postman is the world's leading API platform, trusted by 98% of the Fortune 500 and over 40 million developers. Tap into APIs from 18,000 plus companies to power agents that make smarter decisions. Learn more at postman.com/podcast/codestory. This message is sponsored by Melee Search. Today, search isn't just a feature, it's a cornerstone. And Melee Search gives your users the experience they need with lightning-fast performance, full-text search, AI usage, and multimodal capabilities. Melee Search delivers relevant results in less than the blink of an eye. Use the promo code CODESTORY at checkout to get 2 months free at meleesearch.com. That's MEILI search.com.
We were surprisingly bad at roadmap, I would say, for a really long time. Now we have a really wonderful product management team. But in the early days, we were super bad at this. There was the trope at Stripe that they didn't have any product managers through the first 100 people. And I would say that was true of Assembled, but not really intentionally. We just didn't know our way around. I would say the thing that did work for us, forcing engineers to be really customer facing. That's how John was as an engineer. That's how I was. And I didn't really have a choice because I was not that great at the technicals. So actually for years, and we never officially changed the name. So technically there is no engineering organization at Assembled. It's just called product. My name is Ryan Wang. I'm co-founder and CEO at Assembled.
This is Code Story, a podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries.
Spent 6 months moonlighting.
There's nothing on the back end.
Who share what it takes to change an industry.
I don't exactly know what to do next.
Took many goes to get right.
Who built the teams that have their back.
A company is its people.
The teams help each other achieve more.
I was proud of our team.
Keeping scalability top of mind.
All that infrastructure was
Yes, we've been fighting it as we grow.
Total waste of time. The stories you don't read in the headlines.
It's not an easy thing to achieve, mind
Took
you.
it off the shelf and dusted it off and tried it again.
to ride the ups and downs of the startup life.
You need to really want it.
It's not just about technology.
All this and more on Code Story.
I'm your host, Noah Labhart, and today Ryan Wang is building the best AI platform for customer support so you can have world-class support operations. This episode is brought to you by PropelOff. People take authentication for granted, but it's more than how customers log into your product. It's how you manage your relationship with your users. The easiest way to make authentication your advantage is to use PropelOff. PropelOff is more than just functional. It's powerful. With tools like Managed UIs, Enterprise SSO, robust user management features, and actionable insights, PropelOff adapts as your product grows. And the best part? When auth is effortless, your team can focus on scaling, not troubleshooting. That means more releases, happier customers, and more growth for your business. Save dev time, win over your customers, and propel your business forward with PropelOff. Check them out at propeloff.com. That's PROPELAUTH.com. This episode is brought to you by Paddle. Don't settle for less when you can have more, MOR, with Paddle, your merchant of record. Eliminate the headaches of payments, grow your revenue everywhere, and focus on what you do best, building your product. Get more revenue with less hassle at paddle.com. Ryan Wang has had a winding set of paths to get where he is today. He studied economics and statistics with the intent of going to grad school and becoming a professor. After talking with his boss at the time, Levitt, also one of the authors of Freakonomics, he was convinced that was not the best path. Eventually, he joined Stripe and became a software developer. Outside of tech, he loves to read about different topics. Right now, he's reading about owls and also loves to read fiction and poetry. In fact, he drops poetry occasionally at his current venture. While at Stripe, back when it was an 80-person company, Ryan noticed people doing support tickets on their own. After he spent some time there, he and his now co-founder started to tinker in machine learning for support. As he made progress, a leader pointed out to him that the real problem was around workforce management. This is the creation story of Assembled.
The company Assembled, we build AI for customer support. And when we say AI, we actually mean a lot of different things. We mean automation, which is probably the first thing your mind goes to, over chat, over phone, automating 80% of issues. We also build AI Copilot, so helping human support agents be 20, 30% more productive in the cases that they can solve, also ramp 50% faster, all the way through to operations as well. Much more deep in the stack, but we have companies that have 20,000 people in their contact center. And AI can be used to forecast how many phone calls, how many emails you're going to get, how many people, how many human agents, how many AI agents do you need, and who should be working on what. So when we say AI platform for customer support, it is everything under the sun for customer support. We work with companies like Robinhood, like Stripe, like Ashley Furniture, so all different shapes and sizes. I mentioned we got into Stripe by way of nepotism, but the thing that I ended up working on was machine learning for fraud detection. And that was something that had the right background and had the right skill set for. I had a master's in statistics and it was writing code as well and working with a bunch of guys. There was a guy, Michael Manapat, who was later CTO of Notion, and he had a PhD in math and a bunch of kooky backgrounds, but we were doing machine learning and Stripe was like an 80-person company. But what was interesting about it was Patrick and John Collison, the co-founders of Stripe, they would do support tickets on their own. They would have the whole company do them, this thing they called support rotation. They would have people over their apartment to do it. But obviously that's the type of thing that doesn't scale, and Stripe was a company that was scaling. And in my third year or so there with my co-founder, Brian Z, we decided to work on machine learning for customer support. And I think just as plucky AI engineers are thinking today, probably our first thought was, let's go automate it all away. Build some machine learning models, we've got all this ticket data. And we showed it to the head of support at Stripe at the time, Bob Van Winden. And I said, this is cool. You're automating 20% of the password resets, or all of the password resets, and those represent 20% of the tickets. But that's not the hard part. The hard part, and he had come from Google, the hard part is actually this huge sprawling operation And Google, he had seen go from 1,000 to 3,000 customer support agents, and Stripe was growing a ton and adding complexity, multiple products, people across different geographies, different skill sets, so different specializations. And he said, we need help with this thing called workforce management. And we were like, what's workforce management? It's all about that. When you're scaling a big team, who should be working on what? What we learned very quickly was, oh, that's a machine learning problem. It's time series forecasting. All the things I described to you about how many phone calls, how many emails are going to come in. There's a bit of queuing theory too. How many people do you need to staff, or as you enter the AI agent era, human agents or AI agents, how much capacity do you need to match the demand coming from your customers? I even met somebody who just the other day had done consulting. You hear this all the time, people who work at Accenture or Deloitte or McKinsey talking about consulting for big contact centers. And he mentioned there's this formula called Erlang C. And I said, yeah, Erlang C, that's the core of a lot of what people do in the contact center industry. So you'll find that people are surprisingly plugged into this. And I think it's because every single company, for the most part, has customer support. And every single company, for the most part, wants to deliver great customer support. Even Comcast talks about the amazing customer service awards that they're winning. So the question of the company really was, how do you scale great customer support? High quality, efficient, responsive customer support. And the first answer to that was workforce management. And then we realized a lot of other companies were facing those challenges. Over time, now we're in 2025, we launched in 2020, we added on AI agent products because ChatGPT launched, it became really obvious. The answer to that question, how do you scale great customer support, is actually it's changed. It's not just about how do you organize people, and it's not just about how do you grow and manage headcount, but also how do you automate a lot of this, and then how do you orchestrate what work goes to human agents and what work goes to AI agents.
I'm curious about the MVP. So that first version of Assembled you built, how long did it take to build, and what sort of tools were you using to bring it to life?
Yeah, I wish we had vibe coding because we did a bunch of prototypes. We cheated on the test as well. Our first customer was Stripe, and we got an introduction to the right person who was a workforce manager and deep in the space. So basically, he would show us his spreadsheets. Hey, here's the calculations I'm running. Here's the problems I'm trying to solve. And we would say, okay, great. We'll try to turn that into a product. And then actually what happened was we met some folks at Stripe. We met some folks at Casper early on, some folks at Grammarly, some folks at GoFundMe. These are our first, second, third, fourth customers. And what we realized was the spreadsheet that Nick Lane from Stripe showed us in the very, very beginning. Wait, it looks very similar, different in scale, different in shape and size, different in complexity, but pretty similar in core fundamentals to a lot of what other companies were doing. And basically what you could imagine is one tab was a bunch of calculations of time series data, how much volume's coming in. And another tab was essentially Google Calendar, but in a spreadsheet for tens, 50, 100 people. And it was names going down the left, dates and times going up the top, and boxes colored in. So it really was like a calendar. And we're like, whoa. So the prototype really was at first throwing a bunch of, okay, your spreadsheet, and here's what it looks like in an application. And here's some of the functionality that you're trying to do to automate some of the workflows. And then it just got sharper and sharper over time as we talked to more people and realized more of the commonalities. We could draw the line between Stripe at this scale and Casper at that scale, and they're growing really quickly, so they're moving to the middle along that line. But I will say as well, it took us a long time to get off the blocks. It took us 2 years to launch. Jack Altman, he told us really early on, he had started this company called Lattice, and I was asking him about early days advice and these prototypes we had, and he said, what you get used to when you are this high achieving, you go to the right schools, you work at the right companies, you grow really quickly, you work super hard, you apply your creativity and your grit, and you feel like everything's working. But in the early days of the startup, you're building your prototype, you're trying to get your first dollar of revenue. It's not quite like that. It's not linear. And he said Lattice took 8 months to get their first dollar of revenue. I was like, holy cow, what? No way. We'll do that way faster. But dang, he was really right. And it took us even longer, and it took us a really long time to launch from that even prototype and get that prototype right into something that actually worked.
This episode is brought to you by Vention, your partner in building smarter with AI. When you're moving fast, AI can be your biggest growth driver or a major time sink. That's why Vention created expert-led AI workshops, tailored sessions that help startups test ideas quickly, validate product fit, and avoid expensive detours. You'll walk away with a clear, practical roadmap built by senior engineers and an in-house CTO who've delivered over 150 AI projects across 30-plus industries, giving you not just technical direction, but the engineering peace of mind that every decision is built to last. Go to ventionteams.com or book your AI workshop now at ventionteams.com/codestory and go from idea to impact faster. That's ventionteams.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by Fullscale. Let me guess, your team's shipping sprint velocity looks good, but you're still asking yourself, is anyone actually thinking about the why? Matt Watson's been there. He's the founder behind Vin Solutions and Stackify and now runs Fullscale with a 300-plus person dev team. And after 2 decades in the trenches, he's seen the same pattern over and over. Smart developers stuck in systems that reward ticket-taking instead of real thinking. That's why he wrote Product Driven, a playbook for tech leaders who are done babysitting developers and ready to build teams that own the outcome. If you're tired of translating every feature, doing all the thinking, or wondering why your smart team is still stuck, this is the fix. Go to productdriven.com/codestory to grab the book and get the bonus toolkit to help your team shift from output to outcomes, like 12 bold ways to get your retros out of robot mode. Again, that's productdriven.com/codestory. Okay, guys, I got a serious update for you. You heard me talk about SEMA and the product roadmap radar. I just caught up with Matt, who's the founder there, and he gave me the latest on what they are building. And my mind is blown. The team at SEMA are taking things to the next level. Built around the core of the product roadmap radar, i.e. code and Jira analysis, they are building agent orchestration across the product lifecycle. Picture this. You hook up this system same as before, i.e. integrate your repository and your backlog, Jira today. From that point, SEMA's agent analyzes the codebase and makes suggestions as to what needs to be done next and what could improve, optimize the product. Then, if those tasks are routine, the agent assigns the task to a coding agent, think something like Devin, to complete the minutia, while assigning the human-in-the-loop task to engineers themselves. What you end up with is engineers focusing on building core competency features, while AI handles all the rest. If you're not salivating right now, I don't think you fully understand what this means. But here's what I would suggest. Right now, their product is in a closed beta, and SEMA is looking for folks to sign up for their Product Intelligence Advisory Board. This gives you the opportunity to use the product, give feedback, help shape the future of what's built. Oh, and not to mention additional free usage of the product, potentially through the end of 2026. So, if that fits your workflow and toolset, you need to reach out today. Go to codestory.co/nextlevel, NEXTLEVEL, and reach out to Matt at SEMA to learn more and join the Product Intelligence Advisory Board. Again, that's codestory.co/nextlevel. This episode is brought to you by Paddle. As a startup, you face unique challenges to stay competitive. You and your team need to stay focused on your product, not your payments. You need to do more, MOR, and DIY less. With Paddle. Paddle is your merchant of record, becoming the seller of record for your SaaS transactions, enabling your team to focus on what's important, your product. Paddle handles all payment management across multiple gateways and methods, taking ownership of tax liability while remaining compliant with regulations across all markets. The platform handles all aspects of SaaS billing models, upgrades, add-on, trials, and more. Let's look at the results. MOR revenue optimization is built into Paddle and accounts for up to 16% higher conversion rates, reduced payment failures, localized pricing, and churn prevention, recovering 40% of cancellations. Their developer-friendly tools are API first with comprehensive documentation, removing the burden from your engineers. With Paddle as your merchant of record, you'll generate more revenue, find and keep more customers, grow faster, and stay compliant everywhere. So what are you waiting for? Get more revenue with less hassle at paddle.com. So you've got the prototype, you've proven it works. How did you progress and mature that product into into its next phases, right? And I think to wrap in a box a little bit, what I'm looking for is like, how do you build your roadmap? How did you go about building your roadmap? And, what criteria or how did you decide that, okay, this is the next most important thing to build or to address with Assembled?
Yeah, we were surprisingly bad at roadmap, I would say, for a really long time. Now we have a really wonderful product management team and a really seasoned product leader, Levitt, who she had led product at Dropbox, at Blend, all these places. But in the early days, we were super bad at this. There was the trope at Stripe that they didn't have any product managers through the first 100 people. And I would say that was true of Assembled, but not really intentionally. We just didn't know our way around. I would say the thing that did work for us was forcing engineers to be really customer facing. That's how John was as an engineer. That's how I was. And I didn't really have a choice because I was not that great at the technicals, but it was good at translating the need of the internal customer at Stripe. So actually for years, and we never officially changed the name. So technically there is no engineering organization at Assembled. It's just called product. And one of our early engineers, Neil Capps, who's now at OpenAI, he wrote a blog post about, don't call me an engineer. I don't want to be called an engineer. His belief was that engineering in the classic sense, you wait for the product manager to tell you what to do, what's the roadmap, how does this fit together, and run through the sprint cycle, and here's the tickets, and you tick them off, right? And no, that's not what we did. We said, go to visit our customer. Actually, just 2 weeks ago, I was in New York visiting one of our customers, and we said, hey, Stephanie Rodriguez was one of our engineers and new on the team. Come with us. Like, we're about to kick off this project. Come with us and go go shadow these human support agents and see what they're doing and figure out how you can do it better. And then she immediately said, the 3 things on the sprint, they didn't really matter. I heard this one thing in the team stand-up. I think we should do that instead. So that was a lot of our early development. Now, of course, when you're just going one thing at a time, you don't know what 3 months out looks like, 6 months looks out. But I think over time, as things started to stick, as you see 3, 5, 10, 20 customers, I remember there was a year we tried to go from 20 to 50 customers. Our belief was that if you pick the right customers and you follow this kind of what are their problems, and you think not just literally what are they saying, but you also understand what's the problem underlying because engineers have seen it, then you can fill in the blanks. And so I'll give you an example there. When we launched in 2020, we had these 2 different points on the line, so to speak. Stripe at a much larger scale, Grammarly, Casper, much smaller scale, but growing quickly. And then one of our really early customers was Robinhood during 2020. And if you remember that time, their business was blowing up. Bitcoin, meme stocks, they were everywhere. And customer support was a big part of it too, because they were getting, again, Bitcoin, meme stocks, all these challenges. And at some point, half of the team, half of the company was customer support. Executives all the way down through, everybody was doing it. And so that ripped our roadmap all the way through. It was like all of a sudden, okay, Robinhood went from in the middle to all the way at the very top in terms of their needs. And then our enterprise roadmap was just keep up with Robinhood, because if we don't, they're going to go look at some other tools that do this in the enterprise, have been around for 10, 15, 20 years. So again, it was just drawing the line between now what does this problem look like at enterprise scale and what are we doing?
You mentioned some of the team members going and listening to customers. How did you build that team? How did you go about that process? And what did you look for in those individuals to indicate that they were the winning horses to join you?
In the early days, nobody had heard of Assembled. So it was very much bet on weird backgrounds. And I say that in the most loving way, like not pejoratively, but weird backgrounds. And we were looking for, at least I was looking for people a little bit like me. I would never have gotten, in fact, I didn't get any interviews because this guy studied economics. He worked at a consulting firm. He's never taken a computer science class before. Why would this person be a plausibly good software engineer? But even in my first interview at Stripe, and I learned about this later on, there was this guy, Chris Wu, who became a good friend, and he told me in the interview loop, it was pretty weird the way you solved that problem. And I was a no. Like in the interview debrief, I said, we should not hire this guy. But you were the only one that ever solved it that way. So when we interviewed people, and I did a lot of the early interviewing as well as the early folks, and I would look really into the engineering interview and not about the result, not about did they finish the problem, but how did they do it? Did they do it in a kind of quirky, weird way? And it wasn't quirky per se, but you were looking for evidence that if they had a weird background, they didn't study computer science, for example. But was there evidence that they had taught themselves a lot, in which case their trajectory would be on this pretty steep slope? And so that plus being able to recognize differentiated talent, plus in the early days, for example, Hacker News, they still do this every month, but I think it's gotten a lot noisier because maybe other people have picked up on this. They have two threads. One's called Who's Hiring, and one's called Who Wants to Be Hired. Every single company goes to Who's Hiring and just drops their thing. And we did this for some time. Here's our job posting. Here's our software engineers. We're looking for that. The Who Wants to Be Hired is a really interesting place. There's a lot of noise. There's people just dropping their resumes. And then there's diamonds in the rough. I think it was our third hire. And he had a background where he did not study computer science. He studied design, product design. And he worked at Autodesk back in the day. But he had his personal website. And on his personal website, there was a coloring book that he had designed. And then there were these software projects that he was playing around with. And then they were all super interactive as well. So it was like, wow, this guy's pretty good. And I just outreached him over email. And I think he was surprised that posting on Hacker News in that way actually landed people. I mean, we put him through the interview loop. And again, we were able to tell, wow, yeah, it's a real deal. I wish I could say, by the way, that it was so obvious, but at the end of our first interview loop, the whole team was like, he's not good enough. He's not strong enough at the core fundamentals of computer science. And I said, I think there's something interesting here. So we did another interview, but it was a very conviction type of thing to say, I think he can do it. And so even to this day now, our engineering interviews, we really look for a lot of conviction. And I feel like the best hires are ones where everybody's, I don't think so, but one person really sees something.
This episode is brought to you by Propel. People take authentication for granted, but it's more than how customers log into your product. It's how you manage your relationship with your users. The easiest way to make authentication your advantage is to use Propel Auth. Propel Auth is more than just functional. It's powerful. With tools like Managed UIs, Enterprise SSO, robust user management features, and actionable insights, Propel Auth adapts as your product grows. And the best part? When auth is effortless, your team can focus on scaling, not troubleshooting. That means more releases, happier customers, and more growth for your business. Save dev time, win over your customers, and propel your business forward with Propel Auth. Check them out at propelauth.com. That's PROPELAUTH.com. This episode is sponsored by MailySearch. In today's digital landscape, search isn't just a feature, it's a cornerstone. And you need a user experience that drives customer satisfaction. You need MailySearch. MailySearch is lightning fast performance, returning answers in less than 50 milliseconds. Yeah, you heard that right. Faster than the blink of an eye. The open source AI search engine is plug and play, so you can get up and running in minutes with smart presets, allowing you to start searching through your data with zero configuration. MailySearch utilizes advanced full-text search and AI, ensuring your results are ultra-relevant with semantic depth. It's multimodal, supporting images, videos, and audio, along with being federated, i.e. searching across multiple data sources. And it's developer-friendly. Whether you're building a content-rich website or enterprise application, MailySearch delivers the experience your users expect and deserve. For a limited time, CodeStory users can get 2 months free. Use the promo code CODESTORY, all one word, at checkout. Just go to MailySearch.com and get started today. That's MEILI search.com. Okay, I want to move forward into scalability, and this will be interesting. Have there been interesting areas, where scale has kind of been part of the design, or have there been part of how you approached a problem, or have there been interesting areas where you've had to fight scale as you've grown?
Yeah, we've definitely had to fight scale as we've grown, and there's unexpected things along the way. But from the very beginning, and this was the nice part about being a little bit further into one's career and starting with the learnings of what does it look like if you pick a language? So Stripe was written in Ruby. Amazing language, super expressive. You're building a payment system. And they had to pull in some folks from Facebook who had worked on Hack to say, let's create a type system for Ruby. So this project called Sorbet, and that was a huge project. You see that and you go think to yourself, somebody typoed, parentheses. That should never happen this is 2020, right? So we were really intentional about the language we wanted to use. We did think about Ruby. We did think about Python, those languages for their expressiveness. But then we also looked at Java because Java was coming back and has a lot of this built-in type safety. And we looked at Haskell for that as well. And the thought was maybe we'll down the line be able to hire in a differentiated way because there'd be really good people that just want to work on Haskell. But where we landed on was Go. And we landed on Go because it was a very professional language. It was, you go look in the standard library and you have the HTTP. Whereas you go look at Python, you have to, the library most people use is some third party that somebody else wrote. You go look at Go, there's a debugger just built into the language, and it's super simple to build. We would have people come in who are contractors, and they would say, we got to move everything to Kubernetes 3 years into the code base. And we're like, what are you talking about? Our deployment is upload to the server and go build and go run. So I think just getting the language right, getting the reasons for getting the language right, the simplicity, the professionalism, that just has saved us so much time over time. That's been a compoundingly useful bet. And then now in the age of AI again, I think, I forget who his name is, there's an engineer from Anthropic who said, Go is a language basically built for AI. It's really easy for AI to generate. It's really easy for tools like Cursor, for Cloud Code, for Codex to contemplate. So there's been compounding investments for us now over the years.
As you step out on the balcony and you look across all that you've built thus far with Assembled, what are you most proud of?
So our mission is to transform and elevate customer support. I think a lot of people, definitely in the age of AI, and I think Sam Altman a month ago was a podcast saying, the first most obvious application of AI is coding, and that's obviously taking off. And then the second most obvious application is customer service. And there's going to be no people left in customer service when all this is said and done. And I think most people look at that and the technology is all about disrupting and they want to transform the industry. And that's all well and good. But I'm really proud of the part where everybody at Assembled understands the elevate part of our mission. And over 50% of our users are outside the US. This is contact center agents. And they all come from different walks. And it's taken us to different parts of the world. I was in Armenia a couple months ago, meeting one of our customers. I was in Ukraine in 2019, right before things went a little bit nuts over there. And we got to know these people. And so you feel a deep connection to these places. And then the software that you're building, you feel a little bit of responsibility in terms of the parts that are automating, yes. And then what does that mean? And then the parts that are augmenting people. And then, yes, how does that actually make their jobs and their lives easier? And then you also come to this realization over time. I was in Dallas a month ago visiting one of our customers who was onboarding at their BPO, their business process outsourcer. And these are out in the suburbs. And you can imagine just giant suburban office mall, right? And then you watch these people do their work. And by the way, to get to the floor, you first go through a security metal detector. You can't take your phones in. And then you've got a woman who is doing the type of work that some people would say is dumb and automatable and stupid, but she's got a monitor on her left, her laptop in the middle, a monitor on the right, doing fraud investigations. There's 2 internal tools that the very tech-forward company that is outsourcing to her company built, and then 2 external tools that are just part of investigation and a Google Doc in the middle. And she's hitting refresh because the tool that the tech company built doesn't work. And on the right, like pulling data and pulling it into her investigation notes, and then typing, pulling notes, and then hit refresh. Typing, pulling notes, and hit refresh. That's a really hard job. It's not obvious to me how you automate that. And then also, it is obvious to me that if you skip past the AI layer and just say, hey, let's make the intermediary tools a little bit better, that's wonderful outcomes for the business. And that makes this person's life better because they don't have to hit spam, refresh, and multitask like that. So I think for us, the part of transform and elevate customer support, actually taking the time to go understand what's happening in this space, that part I'm really proud of.
Let's flip the script a little bit. Tell me about a mistake you made and how you and your team responded to it.
Today, we're a full platform, and our first product was a classic SaaS. It was replacing legacy tools. Our second product was, and it turned out to be second, third, fourth, the AI agents that I described to you, automating chat, automating voice calls, co-pilots to make people better. We had started that effort building our second set of products in a separate room. And that helped us get it off the ground. They moved really quickly. It was in the 0 to 1 phase. We followed the Y Combinator playbook, had them do demos. And it was really good. Like they create a whole new product. a startup within a startup, probably earlier than we otherwise would have. But when we saw the writing on the wall in terms of where LLM technology was going, we said we have to do this. But then we almost broke the company. And there was this kind of bunch of cultural questions inside where people would ask, are we pivoting the company? Are we just jumping on the AI bandwagon and our first product, workforce management, doesn't matter anymore? There was cultural resentment built up. Like this group of people, they were in a different room. Like, how come they had got to have so much fun and we're over here working on the things that pay the bills, the big customers who are really demanding? And then it went the other way too, is for the team that built the new product. How come everybody doesn't get AI, doesn't get what we're doing? They're giving us such a hard time, and screw them, we'll show them. So we were really good at getting an AI agent product out the door really quickly. But I think it took us a lot more time to figure out how to smooth the edges culturally we went from a single product company that was pretty straightforward to a multi-product company where the story is more complex. The continuity between the products is challenging, and you have to figure out how to answer those questions for more internally. And you have to carve out the cultural differences between two teams that are operating a little bit differently. The way that we did that was, we went to our early customers. There was this guy, Gershwin Exeter, he runs support at Thrasio. And he had known us as a workforce management platform, and we showed him our AI agent product. And the first thing he said was, I did not expect this from you. I did not expect our workforce management company to be providing AI agents and doing it well. And then the second thing he said was, okay, but I get it, because you have all the data. You have all the data about how much volume is coming in, how much work is needed, and where it should be going. Okay, this is pretty cool. And we just said to ourselves, wow, that's amazing. That's our pitch. That's our pitch right there. Just take everything that he said and our other customers said and just write it down, and then take it back to the company and then show it to them rather than tell it to them. And that was when it started to work.
Let's move forward then. I'm really curious to hear the passion in your voice and where this is all going. What does the future look like for Assembled, for the product and for your team?
Yeah, I think it starts with the same question we've been asking. How do you help companies scale great customer support? High quality, super efficient, really responsive. Most companies I know of, you go ask the head of support, certainly. You go ask the CEO or the C-suite. I was at this conference in London, and I bumped into a bunch of CEOs of our customers and prospects, and I would ask every single one of them, in the age of AI, what are you trying to do with support? Are you trying to automate away, bring costs to zero? Are you trying to do something else? What are you trying to do? How do you view this? And to a T, every single person said, no, we care a lot about quality. We want it to be efficient, of course, but conditional on quality. Otherwise, why would you even have customer support? You just turn it away. The hard part is, how do you do it well? And before AI, after AI, I think it will be the same type of thing. It's how do you scale great customer support? Because it's quite challenging. It's this huge operational thing that's deeply embedded, and it's conditional on the product too. The definition of customer support is everything that people didn't think about in terms of the product, and it broke. Right? Otherwise, the product would have worked in the first place. So as far as where Assembled will be in that world, I think we work backwards into, we have a fundamental belief, both based on our read of where the technology is going and from just observing up close and personal what people do, that a lot will be automated and it's going to work really well. We see that with our AI agents. They're shockingly good. But then also there's going to be a lot of work that isn't automated, and that people actually, their best use, their highest leverage impact, things that are meaningful to them are not, how do you do the repeatable, okay, yeah, you'd like a refund. Let me try to upsell you first. Okay, here you go, process it. No, that will be great for an AI to do for the consumer. That would be great for the AI to do from a customer support agent perspective too, because those are the folks who, especially the good ones, especially the ones who are subject matter experts, who understand your product, who understand your company culture, care about your customers. You want them to be doing things like training the AI agents, putting together the data that should go into them, creating the policies. What should the refund policy be? What is the source of truth for how these systems work? How is it connected between product management, engineering, all the way through to the end consumer? Those are the types of things that I think human support agents will be doing, and they'll become much more high leverage. And then above it all, I think Assembled will be back to our machine learning operations research roots, not AI per se, but this orchestration layer of how much volume should go to AI agents and how much should go to human agents, and design the best customer experience. So I think it all goes back to that. I think the technology will only help the customer support get better.
Okay, Ryan, let's switch to you. Who influences the way that you work? Name a person or many persons or something you look up to, and why.
I mentioned I read a lot, and there's both fiction and some of the nonfiction is around, this is not my term, history's greatest entrepreneurs. There's this founders podcast. It's called Literally Founders by this guy, David Senra, and he will read all of these books. So in the last, I would say, year since I found this podcast, some of it is actually reading them in, and some of them is listening to this guy who's read them over and over again and does a 1-hour podcast about everything he's learned from all of them. And he talks a lot about Bill Gates and Microsoft, and I've always been drawn to it because there's this Paul Graham essay from early on. It's, what is this what Microsoft is this the Altair basic of? And most people don't know this. Microsoft started as just a really thin layer, a basic interpreter for the Altair. It started in Albuquerque, and it was entirely dependent on this other company called MITS, who was reselling their software. They spent a number of years in Albuquerque before going to Seattle. And so it was a bit of a grind. It was them building up from this thing where you'd be like, that's simple, that's narrow, that's lame, into the company that was putting a computer on every desk in every home. And I think to see them launch product after product from starting there and then have this really big vision all along the way, that's something that I would like for Assembled to be. It took us a lot of effort to launch our second product, which turned into 2, 3, 4, but then 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, because as consumers, I think we've all been there. The customer support it's still not there. So when I look at companies that are able to do that over a prolonged period of time and innovate over a prolonged period of time and turn those into products, that's super cool.
Okay, Ryan, last question. So you're getting on a plane and you're sitting next to a young entrepreneur who's built the next big thing. They're jazzed about it. They can't wait to show it off to the world and can't wait to show it off to you right there on the plane. What advice do you give that person, having gone down this road a bit?
One of our cultural values is get on a plane. So I'm like, keep getting on planes. But seriously, I do think certainly in enterprise software and probably in non-enterprise software too, I'm not as familiar with it. It helps to put your face in the place, right? To go meet the people. And that might be to do deals. That might be to do executive reviews, but that might also be to just understand what is going on with your user base? What challenges are they really facing? When you hear it through second order, third order layers and it gets filtered through your company, it's very different from going and seeing it for yourself. I really love this concept that Toyota has. They have this thing called the Gemba Walk, and it was really to be in the place. And basically they would send their executives to the factory floor and walk around. And yeah, when you're sitting on a spreadsheet looking at the manufacturing process, it's one thing. When you go and look and say, hey, what is going on right there? That's quite a different thing. So yeah, we're sitting on a plane. I'm like, keep getting on planes, man.
That's super cool and fantastic advice. Well, Ryan, thank you for being on the show today. And thank you for telling the creation story of Assembled.
Thank you for having me.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Labhart. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening.